Africa has emerged as a possible future digital superpower with a fast increasing startup ecosystem over the last decade. Today, Africa is seeing an increase in the number of accelerators, innovation hubs, and incubation programs. The ecosystem is continuously changing and adapting to new trends. The development of Kenya's startup ecosystem can be traced back to 2006 when an underwater internet cable was deployed. This caused a surge in connectivity and sparked the establishment of some of the first startups. iHub, Kenya's first tech hub, was created in 2008. iHub and MLab 2010 created an environment for businesses to incubate and thrive, followed by the launch of the first startup competition, Pivot East. The Kenyan government also initiated Tanda grants through the Ministry of ICT to encourage entrepreneurs to exhibit skills in various areas. Kenya's startup ecosystem has achieved laudable milestones and is recognized as one of the most progressive ecosystems in Africa. These important milestones include the commendable level of funding received, an increase in the number of components such as technology hubs and other startup support organizations, and the introduction of policies and regulations by the government to support the sector. The Kenyan startup ecosystem suffers from insufficient research due to the lack of accurate and quality data on the development and dynamics of the Kenyan startup ecosystem, which often forces stakeholders to rely on biased or extrapolation-based data. Most startups were noted to have sprouted in Nairobi. However, findings also show that startups have moved out of Nairobi and set up bases in devolved regions like Mombasa, Kisumu, Uasin Gishu, and Taita Taveta, among others. The future growth of startups will depend on impervious regulations that enable the participation of all industry participants through more focused strategies. Domestic investors need to be encouraged to fund domestic startups, especially given that majority of significant funding rounds are made by foreign investors. To encourage more participation, governments should incentivize the activities of investors, private equity firms, and venture builders. Universities need to create a more coherent system to support innovation and research at the institutional level. More importantly, it requires the collective participation of all sector participants. Across Kenya, the burgeoning startup sector has the potential to generate wealth, employment, and skills. The startup explosion in Kenya is fostering an ecosystem that may also have positive social effects by, for instance, enhancing lending access in important industries like agriculture. Additionally, the new entrants are helping to promote inclusion, particularly among young people and women. Stakeholders, such as governments, academic institutions, and technology hubs, have a crucial role in fostering sustainable growth and innovation to scale up these benefits. In terms of fostering a favorable business environment and continuing to be an alluring location for investors in East Africa, Kenya has come a long way. In comparison to its competitors, the nation continues to perform best in most competitive indices. The Kenyan startup ecosystem has snowballed to become what it is today. An increase in number of startups in the ecosystem, the number of investors, and the amount of funding flowing into the ecosystem all indicate growth. Startup ecosystem enablers that include Startup Grind, which is a global startup community designed to educate, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs, as well as iHub and Anza Village, which strives to nurture a generation of business owners, business leaders, business builders, have been catalysts for regional technology acceleration and role models for technology hubs across emerging markets. The main challenges that affect the startup ecosystem in Kenya include access to capital, which remains the most difficult barrier. This is despite the huge success of some startups in the country on funds raised. This is especially true for early-stage firms, which are viewed as riskier by investors. The mismatch between startups and available financiers has been attributed to a variety of factors, including a lack of information by startups, funders' specialization in specific startup stages, and so on. Limited resources by financiers make the financing space extremely competitive and thus difficult for startups. Government support remains insufficient despite commendable efforts at the county and national levels to raise the profile of the startup sector through, among other things, supporting regulations. Both startups and stakeholders believe that the government does not do enough to support startups, which experts attribute to policies that bundle startups with other businesses and MSMEs. Interestingly, sector stakeholders credit the lack of government interference in the sector for the commendable growth that has been achieved over the last 10 years. They demonstrate uncertainty over the implications of imminent control and regulation, as is evident in such new legislation as the Data Protection Act and the Startup Bill of 2021. Research on 1,333 ventures registered in Kenya shows there's a relation between startup performance and the support these startups received from Kenya's startup ecosystem. For example, 50% of companies that participate in ecosystem support program secure funding, with the average investment received nearly 6 times greater for startups that do not participate in the programs. Stakeholders agree that the Kenyan ecosystem is highly reliant on foreign sector players, particularly in terms of startup funding. Concerns have also been raised about the composition of the founding members of startups that compete in terms of resource mobilization. The makeup looks to be skewed too heavily in favor of foreigners. As a result, there is a possibility for locals to fill in opportunity gaps in the ecosystem as needed. Kenya's startup ecosystem presently has more than 1,000 startups, over 239 constituency innovation hubs, above 74 private accelerators and incubators, growing number of university hubs, with 29 at the time of the report counted, and more than 400 investors. The startup scene has also seen an increase in funding, making it among the most funded in Africa. Recommendations have been offered by the various stakeholders, such as establishment of local venture capital funds within the government and corporate sectors, the creation of micro-industry clusters, and regional and international trade agreements to accelerate the growth of the startup economy. Furthermore, there is a need to harmonize county policies on startups, increase youth enterprise development training so that they see starting a business as a viable option rather than a last resort after failing to land a white-collar job. Establish incubation centers in TVET institutions and incorporate entrepreneurship in the school curriculum to support startups. For farm-level interventions, recommendations include the reduction of taxes on ICT-based equipment to make it more affordable for startups, the improvement of startups' access to network and ICT infrastructure, increasing the supply of tech talent, and shortening the time it takes to raise seed capital. To prevent founders from losing out during business storms, and to stop corruption in which startups are pressured into unjust deals that choke off subsectors, laws must be put in place. For the longest time now, we've been talking to you about startups, bringing to you startups. So today, we're going to meet ecosystem enablers, and they'll be telling us how exactly they're helping startups, how are they empowering them to be the best that they can be, and who exactly are startups. We'll be telling you all about this in a little while, so let's go. With me here is James Owino, the director of Startup Grind. Tell us about his ecosystem. James.
Thank you so much. Startup Grind is a community of founders, a community of creators and entrepreneurs globally. Yeah, so we come together to basically help each other out. Yeah, so what I usually say is that, and this is based on my experience, doing businesses is hard, especially startups. Yeah, because in most countries you don't have like definite systems to help startups. Yeah, so when you get into that space, it's very, very hard to survive. Yeah, so you need a family, you need people to actually hold your hands to basically take you from one level to the next. Yeah, so that's where Startup Grind comes in. So what we do is we provide education, we provide resources, and we provide like a platform for people to collaborate. Yeah, to basically help again your startup, or even for you to even learn more about what startups are and how they can actually help you. Yeah, so in the world we're in 125 countries, 600 cities, Nairobi being one of them, and that's where I lead the Nairobi chapter as the Nairobi chapter director. Yeah, and what we do now as an enabler is that from all the activities that we do as Startup Grind, we basically try as much as possible to help our members receive resources again, receive knowledge on how to run their businesses. And we do that through events. We do monthly events whereby we get industry experts to come and talk to our members. We do workshops, we do hackathons, we do seminars to basically, again, bring our people together to network, to collaborate, and gain as much knowledge as they can to help them with their businesses. There is a past we've managed to get hold of people from the cybersecurity space. We've managed to get people from the podcasting domain. Recently, we hosted Tesh Mbabu. Tesh Mbabu is one of the, to me, he's one of the greatest startup founders. He managed to raise more than 40 million USD, that was last year, to basically help scale his startup called Marketforce. Yeah, so bringing such people to come and talk to our members is basically good and very refreshing, especially for them to know that whatever they're going through at a particular point in their startup journey is not like one of those things that you are going through alone. It's something that other people have actually gone through, and they've managed to put in place certain measures to move to the next level. So that's why I'm very, very keen on bringing on board people who've been there, done that, and they've managed to do it successfully. Yeah, so that they can come and give the members insights on how to do it.
At the very heart, we have the founders, and we've seen in the past year, I think we've been one of the fortunate countries to raise a good value of money from the ecosystem. And then from the founders, you do have then the people who are funding the founders, that's the VCs. But sometimes you get to the VCs, you have accelerators and incubators. And then finally, in that chain, you also have government. So what was missing, what we found was we didn't have someone connecting all this. And that's where we came in. We became a space where all of us could exist. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do events, workshops, and partnerships with all those tied up. So what sets us apart is we are not trying to replace anyone, we're trying to bring everybody in one table. So Anza Village has been in existence for slightly over a year now. And the beauty of us is we all came from backgrounds within the innovation ecosystem. And so when we came to build Anza Village, we definitely knew what was missing. And for the longest time, policy conversations has been missing. conversations about how we push the next, push and drive the nail in the innovation space. So I remember in one of the events, someone asking me, how do I protect my idea? How do I make sure that we don't continue the narrative of, M-Pesa was someone else's idea, I don't know, something like that. So for us, intellectual property was key to this. I personally am a patent agent, and so are some of the partners that we have within Anza Village. And we partnered with the UK government and the Kenya Innovation Agency to bring together the IPR Summit, which we hosted last year towards the end during the Kenya Innovation Week. In addition to that, it's not enough that you run a workshop or you run a summit without having something to take home. So we launched something called the GRIP Hub. Under the GRIP Hub, we have the Innovators Guide to Intellectual Property Rights. It's a handbook that any person within the ecosystem can learn, whether you're a founder, whether you are somebody who's dreaming of innovating something, someone who's been trying to think, what's a patent, what's a trademark, how do I protect? So it became something for us to learn, and also a tool that people can go on and utilize. And it's also being used now with the academic partners that we have.
Over the past couple of years, of course, we have seen a great improvement within the innovation ecosystem, not only in Kenya, but across the continent. More innovators, more entrepreneurs are on board to learn, upskill, see how they can improve themselves as entrepreneurs or as innovators, but also see how they could further develop their innovations and their businesses and ideally build themselves for success. Additionally to that is we have more foundations, more private sector companies that are now coming on board to better support entrepreneurs across the continent. Just a very good example is a program that we're currently running in collaboration with the MasterCard Foundation, where we're supporting edtech startups to build solutions that are relevant for our society. Just to mention that.